Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from, and welcome to today's webinar on the Hearables Challenge, sponsored by the National Science Foundation. My name is Casey Shapiro, and I will be your host and moderator for this webinar. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be transcribed for viewing on the challenge website at a later date. Now we're going to briefly go through the agenda for this webinar. First, we're going to provide the speaker introductions, and then we'll provide an overview for the challenge. After that, we'll present the frequently asked questions for this challenge, and then work through a live Q&A. To participate in that live Q&A, please submit your questions at any time through the Q&A chat box. We'll go ahead and collect those and present the questions during the live Q&A section. If we do not answer your question live, please note that we will be transcribing and answering all of these questions asked during the session and posting them on the challenge forum for viewing with the recording at a later date. And then finally, we will wrap up with information on what you can do today for the challenge, including where to register, how to stay connected, and how to submit your proposal. Now I am pleased to welcome the following speakers to our webinar this morning. From NASA Johnson Space Center, we have Carissa Collini, MBA, COSI Challenge Coordinator. From the National Science Foundation, we have Wendy Nilsson, PhD, Program Director, Smart and Connected Health, and Beth Linus, MHS, PhD, AAAS, Science and Technology Policy. Look at all those acronyms. And from 9 Sigma, we have Kevin Andrews, PhD, Senior Program Manager. Now, Kevin Andrews is going to go ahead and give us an overview of the challenge. Kevin?
Good morning. So the National Science Foundation has joined with NASA's Tournament Lab and 9 Sigma to run this Hearables Challenge. NSF invites solutions to enhance the clarity of conversations in noisy settings. So the goals of this challenge are to alert communities that this problem is a worthy research opportunity with a large potential impact, and to develop a solution that allows processing audio data to augment speech recognition in noisy environments.
Great. Now we're going to throw it over to Carissa so she can provide some details on NASA's Center of Excellence for Collaborative Innovation, or COSI. Carissa, go ahead.
Hi. Okay, thanks. Hi, my name is Carissa Collini, and I'm a challenge coordinator for the Center of Excellence for Collaborative Innovation, or COSI for short, here at NASA. We are involved in this challenge because COSI works across not only NASA, but with other federal agencies like the National Science Foundation to infuse crowdsourcing methods as a set of available tools for the government. Next slide, please. COSI also runs the NASA Tournament Lab, which was mentioned already, which offers various open innovation platforms like 9 Sigma for use by NASA and other federal agencies. This allows the government to engage in public crowdsourcing communities in challenges to create the most innovative, efficient, and optimized solutions for specific real-world challenges that we are facing. So like this Hearables Challenge. So that's our involvement today, and thank you for having us.
Thank you, Carissa. Now, Wendy from the National Science Foundation will provide the background for this challenge. Wendy?
Hi, good morning. So the background for this challenge is that hearing loss is very, very common in older adults. It's a common issue across the lifespan, but especially in older adults. And while hearable technologies, and we're including in that hearing aids and assistive listening devices, can enhance hearing for many individuals, there's really situations where these devices are not optimal. So this is a really important area with huge impact. There are now currently 30 million Americans over the age of 12 that have hearing loss. We understand that deafness is also a huge issue, but on these we're looking at people with hearing loss. So what we think is that hearables really can enhance functioning for a large number of people. But there really are these situations where they don't perform. And it's been consistently shown in the literature that one of the big areas where things are problematic is areas with a noisy background, so such as a conversation in a restaurant. So what we're really trying to do in this challenge is alert the research community to this opportunity area, sorry, as a nation's science agency, we're really interested in having people think about how do they solve a problem like this. How do they develop algorithms or methods that can improve hearing in a situation where it's been consistently challenging, such as a noisy environment? Next slide, please. So again, you know, what we know is 46% of people who have trouble hearing have been to a healthcare professional. So it's not that they don't know they have trouble hearing. But when we look at the numbers, this comes out of a recent IOM report on hearing healthcare. What we know is, you know, over 20% of the adults who report having trouble hearing hadn't been to a health professional use a hearing aid. So that means almost 80% of the people who have hearing difficulties don't have a hearing aid. Again, it's only 9% that have an assistive listening device. So while hearing aids and other assistive technologies have improved things, there's still challenges. And when we do the surveys, one of the #1 challenges is how do we sort out the background sounds from the rest of it? So I want to have a conversation with the person I'm talking to, but my hearables will only allow each of them are prioritized the same. So you know, I can hear the person next to me in the same way I can hear the person in front of me, whereas I could potentially hear other people. And it really makes it a challenge to decipher which is my conversation, which are other conversations. How do I pull that background noise out? So this is why we think this is a great challenge for thinking about algorithms and other methods that could improve the quality of the sound. Next slide.
So thank you so much, Wendy. We are going to turn it back to Kevin from 9 Sigma to give us that information that you'll need on how to submit to this challenge. Kevin?
Okay, so to submit, start by registering on our platform, 9sites.com, and complete your profile there. You can access the sample audio file to build and test your proposed solution. There are links provided on the challenge site and instructions within those links, as well as some additional comment instructions on the forum. Get the test file, and then we'll make that test file, the actual file that you're going to process for your submission, that will become available about 1 week before the submission deadline. Your submission has to then include a linked video. We don't actually want the video files. You need to send us a link to your video posted somewhere, you know, on a private site. And then an explanation of the steps that would be necessary to implement your demonstrated method. If you wish, you may include an audio file that results from the processing of your solution, with your solution. Okay, so how will the team evaluate your proposals? Successful solutions will enable clear conversation spoken at a normal level between 2 or more people in a room with background noise and other conversation that may vary in intensity. If you use hardware, you should use consumer quality devices. Your solution should offer real-time processing with minimal delay, the latency less than 10 milliseconds, between words spoken and speech extracted, in order to enable the normal pace of conversation. We would preferably want you to produce sound rather than text, although you could provide sound to text conversion as an added option. Okay, so in terms of the challenge timeline, we launched the project on the 25th of April. We're here today on doing the webinar on May 24th. The submission deadline is June 26th, 2017, and winners will be announced in September of 2017. Remember, the response deadline is June 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Great. Now, Kevin, why should solution providers be interested?
So the opportunity for submitters the total prize pool of $146,000 will be divided up according to what's listed here. And you have an opportunity to present a poster about your winning solution at the UbiComp Conference 2017 in Maui, Hawaii. So first place, the prize award is $80,000 US, and that invitation to present at UbiComp. Second place is $60,000 and the same invitation. Third and fourth place are essentially invitations to present and some money towards the expenses for you to travel there to be at the conference. Your first and second place prize monies, you would also be using that part of that to attend the conference.
And now we're going to move, excuse me, now we're going to move on to the challenge FAQs. We have fielded these questions from inquiries into Nine Sigma's provider help desk and the challenge sites forum. So what about intellectual property, IP, and how am I protected?
Okay, so respondents must submit non-confidential information. When accepting an award, we recommend, but do not require, that you make your solution available in open source format. If you have an alternative path to accomplish similar goals, then simply explain that plan in your submission. You should also refer to Section 9 of the Terms and Conditions document.
And what is the best way to respond?
Register and complete the online proposal template. Note that any posts on the forum are not eligible responses. Click the respond button in order to do the online submission.
And who is eligible to participate in this challenge?
This question we've received a request to clarify a couple of times. So you must be at least 18 years old at the time of submission, and the primary submitter, either private entity or individual, needs to be a U.S. citizen or U.S. permanent resident. Additional team members that are participating but that are not the primary submitter are not required to be citizens or permanent residents of the United States. Refer, please, to Section 5 of the Terms and Conditions document.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Now we're going to move on to the challenge, live challenge Q&A that we talked about earlier. We're going to open the session up to everybody, so please continue to submit your questions through the Q&A chat box. We've already received a few. We'll take the rest of this time to answer them live. Again, want to make note, if we don't get to your question, don't worry. It's being archived, and all questions and answers will be made available on the challenge site following the webinar. So let's go ahead and get to our first question.
Okay, so the first question, according to the challenge summary, there are two scoring criteria. The first criteria is the number of correctly heard words. We're asked to report the words heard in the test file. Our question is how to generate the words from the processed audio file. Can we count on normal people to manually write down the heard words? Wendy or Beth?
Can you repeat the question? Just, I'm trying to have the right formulated in my head.
Sure. The first criteria is the number of correctly heard words. We are asked to report those words heard in the test file. How will we generate that list of words from the processed audio file? Can we count? Can we use normally hearing people to manually write down the heard words?
Can we, as in the challenge leaders, or this is where I'm getting stuck, sorry.
The we refers to the response submitter, the solution submitter, a respondent.
Yes, they can use a normally hearing person to listen to the track to to their processing to list the words.
Okay,
Can transcribe the processed file, put it that way.
Okay.
Would group conversations be viewed more favorably if separated versus individual conversations separating a smaller number of voices?
So the test file that has been given is a conversation between 4 people. And that's what we're trying to do. It's from the point of view of one of the listeners. And so the accuracy is based on these multiple conversations happening in the test file.
Great. This is just it seems like a clarification question. Am I to understand that you are not specifically looking for hardware solutions, but just algorithms that might remove background noise?
So what we are looking for is, if you're going to use hardware, what we're asking is that it be a consumer-grade hardware. We're not looking for new medical devices. What we're looking for is either an algorithmic or a hardware solution, but the hardware solution should be at a consumer level.
Great, thank you, Wendy.
Okay, another question. How do we evaluate the clearness or clarity of the enhanced sounds generated by, how will you evaluate the clearness or clarity of the enhanced sounds generated by the submitted solutions? Does the evaluation count on judges to listen to the denoised audio sounds?
That is correct. We have a panel of judges that will be listening to the denoised audio file to provide the subjective ratings of the hearability of the file.
Okay. Next question. The second evaluation criteria is the real-time performance or processing latency. We understand the goal is less than 10 milliseconds, but different computing platforms have different power for processing. If we run the same software on different platforms, we will get different processing latency. So how do you plan to fairly evaluate submissions that use different computing platforms?
So this is a challenge. This is part of the challenge of the challenge. So we really are looking, as we said, for consumer-grade hardware. We realize that, though, that there's changes happening in computing all the time, that some of the techniques that we couldn't have used 5 years ago now could be used. So I think first priority will be given to devices, consumer-level devices. We will certainly consider ones that can meet the latency and that are using other methods that are, able to very well denoise the information, and to do it with the latency. And again, when they're doing this in their video, demonstrating that and talking about the modalities that they're using to make this happen.
Great, thank you, Wendy. So our next question is it required that the recognized words are linked to each other of the particular speakers in the provided noisy conversation?
Well, I guess I'll just answer that by think about this from the point of view from an individual. How would you want to hear your words? So you're going to denoise these words. You have men talking, you have women talking. In order to understand a conversation, you have to be able to link it contextually. So it would be, I think the most effective solutions will be able to differentiate between denoise and differentiate between the speakers.
Great, thank you. So this one is probably a mix between both Kevin and the folks at NSF, but in the submission document, what do you mean by a link to a video file? Do you expect a slideshow presentation?
So let me start. First of all, we don't want to receive large video files. That's what we're referring to when we say a linked video. You're going to prepare a video and upload it to a hosting service and provide us the link so that we can access that. That way you're not having to upload large files to the 9sites platform that has some file size limitations. Your video needs to demonstrate the performance of your proposed solution. So in that sense, a slideshow presentation wouldn't be appropriate. You should actually record in the video your processing of the test file. You know, essentially from initiating your solution mechanism through processing the entire test file. Wendy, do you want to provide any further clarification?
No, I think, Kevin, I think that was a very, very good response. The one thing you also need to do in it is describe your team, and if you're using hardware, describe your hardware. You know, we would like to know about you and your team and your method. So not an in-depth PowerPoint show, just a description.
Thank you. Okay, so we have one additional question related to the evaluation criteria. Since we have two evaluation criteria, how would we combine the two criteria to evaluate submitted solutions? For example, suppose we have two solutions. The first uses a very simple algorithm that achieves less latency, but also less clarity. And the second, a solution that uses a complex algorithm that achieves better clarity, but higher latency. Which solution would be favored by the judges?
This is why we have a multi-stage judging process. So we're weighting our variables to look at latency, clarity, but also perception. So the judges actually we're listening to all of our submissions, and we're going to be able to, and then we're going to use those three variables to come together to do it. So I think that part of this is very cut and dried. It's very technical, but then there's the human part of this. Is how do we perceive it? So that factors into the equation.
Great, thank you. So one that just came in is mobile versus PC an issue for processing? And then there's a clarification, sorry, it just came in. We're wondering if bulkiness and the size of the hardware is an issue. For example, do you want us to strive for less hardware that is portable, or are there no restrictions, meaning we can use a large webcam and PC for the same grade as a mobile phone processing everything?
So we're looking for consumer grade devices, okay? And obviously, I think if we got down to two proposals that were identical in terms of their latency, their clarity, and their perceived, the one that would be more mobile would be appealing, but these things are changing all the time. So I think it's not to discourage those that might use a bulkier system, because the whole computing world is, you know, Moore's law. We're getting faster and the chips are getting smaller. So thinking about that, but I think all things given equal, the smaller solution, if they were equal, would be the one we'd really be looking for.
So this is actually directly related. By consumer level hardware, for example, can I demonstrate my solution in an FPGA board, or is it considered as a consumer level hardware?
I think that if you want to think about a consumer level versus other, we're looking for non-medical devices. So if an FPGA board is a standard in your medical devices, I think that would tell you that. Again, what we're looking for is solutions that really achieve the latency, that really get the clarity that we're looking for, and we're always looking for the one that is potentially the most mobile. Although again, these things change over time.
Wendy, if they have a demonstration platform that isn't fully based on commercial hardware, but they explain the path that would be required to implement it in that consumer available hardware, is that also okay?
That would be wonderful. or fine.
Next question, are passive systems of interest?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Are passive systems of interest?
I guess I'm looking for a little clarity on.
So he did follow up, not 100% sure if it's me not being a technical person, but are the issues of transducer problems to be addressed? I'm sorry, further clarification, a passive system that is not electric.
Sure. A passive system that is not electric would be a perfectly acceptable solution. I think it's not. I think what we're looking for is innovations in this area. So if that produces, I guess, a system that could produce the clarity, the latency of the sound would fit our challenge requirements.
Great. So I'm going to ask this again because I do believe it was not a follow-up now that we've gotten further clarity. But are the issues of transducer problems to be addressed?
I guess I would like from that listener clarification on what they're referencing in the transducer problems. That is not my area of science, so I'm kind of would like some clarity.
So Russ, please go ahead and provide some clarity, and we can continue to address that when we get that information in. Okay. So, okay, perfect. Transducers cause many issues in hearing and perception. So clarity that we got from him.
Russ, are you asking whether your proposal should address or fix those hardware problems? Waiting for.
So without fixing transducers, clarity in noisy environments is much more difficult.
So again, I think what we're looking is in innovations in having clarity and latency. Again, we're looking for clarity with low latency in these noisy settings. If the solution they're proposing addresses those through working in a transducer, then it seems like it's a potential solution. If that's where they believe that they can have success in this.
Great. So the next question that we received in was just a clarification that the latency must be less than 10 milliseconds.
So ideally, that the latency is less than 10 milliseconds. If you think about how sound is processed, if I'm having a conversation, ultimately, if your solution was to be provided to people, and I'm listening to a conversation and there's more than a 10 milliseconds latency, it really messes with your brain. It's hard to process sound that isn't synced up to the real world. So you're hearing it, and it's there, and then you're hearing it in a way it makes sense. It's very challenging. So in order to make this work within people's sensory systems, the optimal way is less than 10 milliseconds.
Great, thank you. Next question is, how long will the provided test file be? Also, will it be a conversation in a restaurant setting such as the provided training file?
The test file will be roughly 2 minutes. It may be a little more, and it will be a very similar setting to the one that's in the training file.
Great. So this next question is a bit of a longer one, so bear with me. Is it correct to assume that a slightly faster processing time, let's say 1 millisecond versus 2 or 3, is not worth implementing the solution on a less than commercially popular platform like an FPGA? Earlier, it was stated that laying out the path to commercial availability for such a solution would be wonderful or fine, but we are curious if you want algorithms that run on hardware that consumers already own versus potentially affordable and available hardware that they would have to purchase, like an FPGA or a SIC, which is an ASIC. Sorry.
Application-specific IC.
So I think we go back to the original idea. I think when I'm scoring this, the ones that are on commercially available consumer devices that are available now would give an edge. But that does not discriminate against those that might get fabulous latency and clarity where it's using other hardware. I think those things will be balanced out in the judging, so I don't think they should be at all discouraged if that's the approach that they're going with. Does that answer it?
Okay. So this, I believe, is just a bit of a question on clarity, but it is more of a statement. So I'm going to read it as is, and then you can answer appropriately. But we assume that there is only one test file. The test file will be released 1 week before deadline, and the test file will contain the audio sounds that are collected from the same speakers and in the same restaurant setting.
So the question is that a correct assumption?
Yes. It's a different conversation, but with same speakers in a similar setting. So.
Great. So the questions that we're receiving are slowing down at this point. If anybody has any additional, please get them in now. I think that for essence of time, we are actually ahead of schedule, which is great. We can give you guys some time back to your day if we don't have any more questions come in. But I will go ahead and move past this if we receive any before we are ready to let go. We just got one in, but I'll finish what I'm saying. Then we'll go ahead and address them at the end. I'll answer this one, and then we'll move on to what you can do today, and we can address further questions at the end if I do receive them during this. So an additional question that just came in is user adjustability an option?
Could the poser of the question please clarify what they're proposing or what they're suggesting as a question? I'm not sure I understand user modification.
Sure. While he's writing that in, we'll go ahead and move on. Never mind. Of course, as soon as I say it, if we get the answer through. Adjusting operation for specific environments by the user.
Given we're giving you one environment as the test file, it seems like that, although I must say that sounds like an ideal solution in the larger framework of hearables, and it seems like a great research area to look at. For the challenge, given we have one environment that is not, it doesn't seem to be it's not a requirement of the challenge, but it doesn't seem to be a fit given we only have one environment. So I'm supportive of the idea, but I don't know that it meets the challenge.
Great, thank you. So we just got another question. This is actually more for me. Will you be making the introductory slides to the webinar available? Yes, Michael, the recording will show all of these slides, so you will be able to go through it with both the voiceover and the slides available right now. We will not provide the actual the PowerPoint presentation that we're using, but all of that same information that we presented will be in that recording that will be on the forum website when we are, once it gets up there. So let me go ahead and move on to the last slide. What can you do today? Of course, you want to visit the contest site, which is 9sites.9sigma.com. /web/hearables/innovation contest. You will easily be able to navigate to that through the 9 Sites homepage as well, so we encourage you to visit that. You want to register to receive the updates, view the FAQs, and then join that community. You'll want to stay connected by visiting that challenge forum. That is where we will be posting all of this follow-up information as well. You can always contact our solution provider help desk with any questions that you have after this. You can do it via email, which is phd@9sigma.com, or via phone, which is 216-283-3901. And then, of course, submit your proposal. We cannot hammer this hard enough. Deadline for submissions is June 26, 2017 at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We want to thank everybody for attending today. Again, if you have additional questions, please go ahead and submit them through the forum or contact our solution provider help desk. We want to thank all of our speakers for their time and expertise today. And one final reminder that we will be putting this recording up shortly after this is done. So look there if you need further clarification. We look forward to receiving your submissions and have a wonderful day. Thank you.